Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton at Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful July the 16th, 2020. Round of the Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, is hot once again down here. Humid, muggy, thunder showers, and all of that. We're 48 hours away from having all major league, professional sports in America in camp. Also want to extend a thank you and a welcome to the frontline healthcare workers, the nurses, doctors, first responders, Charlton, because this COVID-19 is just going crazy, and I know that their hands are full every day.
Well, we do want to give them our thoughts and prayers and also some of the equipment they need. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Also, anywhere in the world, just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Really appreciate the way things are growing. Man, I love pausing, Big C. You know how pausing is good for you. It's good for a lot of things, but it's never good for the Veterans Crisis Hotline. They are experienced in helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, as everybody should try to keep the veterans in the forefront of their minds, Charlton, for the great job that they've done in serving this country. But when they come back after their service is ended, Charlton, the job that this country does for the veterans is not always so great. We have 22 veterans a day that commit suicide in this country, Charlton, a very horrific number. And I know that there's ways and means out there to hopefully try to prevent that. I know we give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, throughout our shows and stuff, Charlton, but we need more people to be engaged in that in America. We're also losing our teenagers to suicide. And when you think about all the problems that have occurred during COVID-19, suicide has spiked in the United States.
Wow.
So everyone keep in mind the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, and don't hesitate giving it out to someone you feel that may be in trouble.
Never hesitate to give it out. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And you can get some help. And it's all anonymous. They don't put your business out in the streets, so I really appreciate the work that they're doing. Also, very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants, and the Say Hey Kid. When you reach out to them, tell them Big C sent you. The goal is simple: recruit 100 real estate brokers, put their property listings on TV, just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it. And sports teams are starting to do it too. Also growing into another market in Northern California coming up on the fall. So thanking God for that. Also, for those of you looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com. And you can get opportunities in real estate. There's a lot of things that are going on in our country. And I know for the most part, Big C, everyone just has to keep themselves abreast of what to do and how to make things better. And as you mentioned, a lot of teenagers are out of school, and they've been told for the most part they're not going to play sports, even though the NFL and the NBA and Major League Baseball, those are professional leagues. But for the colleges and the high schools, there's a lot of kids that still need to know that they're going to be okay. And it's nice when they can reach out and just let them know everything's going to be all right. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they need to be more concerned about their education, Charlton, and worrying about playing sports. When you think about where you need to get to in life, you need an education to get there. I understand sports has been a huge fabric in America for decades, but right now we're dealing with something socially in this COVID-19 that the world has never dealt with before. And we don't have an answer as a country. We have no leadership from atop in the Oval Office talking about how they're going to attack the pandemic. They would rather just say, hey, it doesn't exist and we're going to deal with the economy, because they've taken away all the statistics from the CDC, not wanting Americans to understand how, dreadful this pandemic is. And when you think about four of the biggest states in the United States, Charlton, when you look at California, you look at Arizona, you look at Texas, and you look at Florida, those states are rampant when it comes to high school sports.
Yeah.
And those are the hottest spots in the country as far as the rise of COVID-19. And so those kids, as well as their parents, need to pay attention to the statistics about COVID-19 and not worry about whether they're going to play sports.
Yeah, and we know that education is important. They're going to have to do some online schooling, and that's whatever you got to do. Just let those kids know that everything is going to be right. Sometimes they just need that reassuring voice. Also, I want to jump into some rugby, Big C. And when you think about how big sports is all over the world and how it ties into everything, every country is connected. But Toronto Rugby League team that may not finish the Super League season, Manchester, England, the Canadian Rugby League team in New Zealand, his name is Sonny Bill Williams, and he may not be able to compete his first season in the English Super League because of complications arising from the COVID-19 outbreak. And I believe you only have a 6-month visa if you're leaving Canada to get back. So that's affecting people too. And you got a 2-week quarantine before you even get back into Canada. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Canada has been very strict, Charlton, and been able to get on top of this COVID-19 with the restrictions that they've put in place as far as, intercontinental moving around, Charlton. Yeah. People leaving and coming into the country. I know they banned U.S. citizens from coming into the country because we're so hot with COVID-19. And if they would follow the guidelines of the CDC here in the U.S., Charlton, they could be on top of this disease probably within 2 months if they required everyone to wear a face mask, Charlton, and stop passing around these pathogens. You'd be amazed where, this disease could get under control. But so many people want to say, well, their rights are being infringed on by forcing them to wear a mask.
Yeah, everybody's rights being infringed on by saying, don't drink and drive. You're infringing on my rights. Don't drink and drive says a lot of people. Sometimes you got to listen. I also want to go over to Cape Town, South Africa, Big C, because the British and the Irish Lions, their rugby tour to South Africa is going to go ahead as planned, but it's going to be next year because the COVID-19 outbreak is affecting so many things all over the world. But they're even looking forward to going next year. They feel that the worst affected areas in the world will have eased in the next 12 months or so, Big C, because they're trying to give science a chance to catch up to it, unlike here in the United States. So they're looking at a rematch date that's going to be, it's a tour. It's in July and August of 2021. And that tells you that just like the Spanish flu back in the 1918, I was talking to a friend of mine about California high school football, and they had stopped the football season for that 1 year. But because they got on top of the virus, they were able to come back and play in 1919. And I think a lot of smart sports leagues as well as school districts are doing the same thing, putting it off for a year. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you can't, regulate high school sports, Charlton. There's no governing body, no national, no state governing body. There's no, thing set up for testing of high school athletes.
Yeah.
So as you look at putting all these athletes out there in all the sports that high schools participate in, some high schools have over a dozen sports that they participate in.
Yeah.
And you have no way to regulate these athletes, no way to test them the way that you do the professional and collegiate teams, Charlton. It's tough to get a COVID test nowadays. People are being turned away from getting COVID tests.
Yeah.
And so when you think that you want to try to keep people safe, Charlton, it's become almost impossible in the United States. And now that the government is taking over all of the census from the testing, Charlton, they're going to cut down even on having the ability to test even more. So people who are in dire straits trying to get tests it's just not going to be available for an American citizen.
Yeah, I know in California they have what's called the CIF, California Interscholastic Federation. They're not talking about testing. They're just saying postpone and give science a chance to catch up. And I think a lot of the older leagues, like college leagues, can learn from that too. I want to touch on one more sport beyond the United States of America. In Real Madrid, they clinched the Spanish league title with a win. And you're going over to Spain, Big C. Real Madrid, they clinched its first Spanish league title in 3 years. And that's today after extending this perfect run following the pandemic break. They've gotten on top of the virus somewhat, and the numbers are down because they restrict on social distancing, just like in the United States, they're strict on saying you can't drink and drive and you got to wear a seatbelt. They did that, and so Madrid, they secured its 34th league title with a 2-1 win over Villarreal. But the only reason they're able to play is because when the virus is spiking very high, Big C, they had the government's help to get on top of it as opposed to playing politics. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, in Europe, they isolated people, they isolated teams. And so that's what allowed them to play. This is something that the U.S. has been very lax about.
Yeah.
So when you play these games, you have no fans. You know, they quarantined everybody. You make them take multiple COVID tests, Charlton.
Yeah.
And that's what allowed them to proceed.
Yeah, they allowed to proceed because they started paying attention. I want to touch on something that might be, I mean, it's just real. And as it's painful as it is to talk about, because we mention it on our program every show, at the end of every show. And sometimes I wonder if, I know we're doing the right thing, but to me, sometimes it seems like it's just like dropping a pebble in the ocean. It doesn't really do much. But I want to say NFL football so far, out of Washington, D.C., 15 women, and it may be counting, Big C, 15 women so far have accused, and anyone can accuse anybody, but this is real serious. They've accused the Washington Redskins management and some of the personnel members of sexual harassment and verbal abuse. But as I think, like I said, women know their bodies more than men know a woman's body. And sexual harassment is a horrible thing to accuse somebody of, especially if they're innocent. Now, there's always two sides to the story. But as we mentioned on our show, no excuse for sexual harassment, and they had the verbal abuse. But this is not that far from where POTUS told men to grab women by the PUSS blobbity blop blop, and you'll get away with it. There's no talk about Daniel Snyder returning any questions yet, Big C. But that's pretty sad when a woman has to go to work and pull her pants down to keep a job, or even take the flirtations and pull your pants down if you want to keep this job. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is what elite white men have always done. White men of privilege, of opportunity, that are in power. This is nothing new. I mean, this has been going on for decades and centuries in America. This is white privilege. This is how it goes on. I know a few of the people that retired that were accused in this situation.
Yeah.
They've stepped away from the organization. But this is no different than what happened a few years ago with the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
When Richardson was accused of sexual misconduct and sexual harassment, within the organization and using racial epithets, and he was forced to sell the team. I don't know why anybody's surprised, because this is what white men of power do. This is commonplace. They've always had this power. They've always had the protection where, you say something, you're losing your job. They have that much right to do what they want to do. So when these suits are brought, Charlton, they don't shock anybody. You think about the gymnasts that have gone through this, where there were hundreds of gymnasts, abused by Larry Nassar. You think about the University of Michigan doctor.
Yeah.
And the Ohio State doctor, Charlton. All of these guys have had privilege, and they've had power, and they sexually abuse people. I mean, you think about Penn State, you think about the Catholic Church. This is nothing new. I mean, every time you hear about it, it's about white men in power sexually abusing and accosting women, and doing this and been getting away with it with impunity for decades.
Yeah. Well, we're men, and it's easy to say that they've been doing it for decades, because from the middle passage to this breaking story, we know it's happened. A lot of those Confederate statues that POTUS wants to defend, with a 10-year in prison sentence if some judge convicts you of desecrating one, they were also rapists. They raped a lot of the people that they owned, that they had ownership of. They raped them with impunity, and there's nothing they could do about it. But I might sound really ignorant right now saying this, because when women say, "Me too," like it happened to me too, and people say, "Yeah, so how can we help you?" But the Black Lives Matter movement, when people say that we have some need of help from the political, from the economic, and the criminal justice system, people say, "Yeah, all lives matter." But when women say "me too," no one says, "Well, it happens to men too." They give women a lot of credit. But I gotta ask you this question, and you probably don't know because you're not a woman either. When 52% of white women voted for the man that said at the pulpit, the biggest pulpit in the universe, grabbed them by the P-U-S, blah, 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 and they went into the ballot box, and they voted for him anyway, near a same city where you have so far 15 women saying it's happened to them too, Big C. Why do they continue to say it's okay, your thought?
Well, the reason why they voted for that individual that's in the Oval Office is because they wanted an old white man in the Oval Office. Hillary Clinton did not fit that criteria after having a black man that they had to listen to for 8 years. So they were going to vote for the oldest white man that was available, and that happened to be Donald Trump, so he became president. Well, when you look at American society, Charlton, I mean, because so many people don't want to believe women when they say that they are assaulted.
Right.
They say, well, you're going to damage this guy's life. You know, you're going to hurt his career. You got to really think about the consequences. Look at how they're going to desecrate you in court. Look at how they're going to tear you down about your background. All these other things. They want women to feel that they were wrong in allowing this to happen whenever they're sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
That's how society has been built from old white men, Charlton, that have always gotten away with it. When they go into court, sitting up on the bench,
Yeah.
being the judge, they got to deal with some old white man that's the prosecutor, you know, accusing them of, you know, wanting this to occur or making it up. So this is the reason why women don't come out so often, you know, with these alleging situations, Charlton, because they have to fight. They've been a victim once, then they're going to become a victim again once they get into the judicial system. I know you make the comment all the time that anybody can sue anybody anytime they want. Women can't sue generally because they've been sexually assaulted, Charlton, because they got to go in and prove the guy has committed a criminal act.
Yeah.
And to go in and to prove that this guy has committed a criminal act against them, they're going to be torn down and denigrated throughout the entire process. They're not going to be walked in and given credibility when they walk into court. So don't ever think that it's an even playing field. Old white men control the system.
Yeah, we've seen that with Bill O'Reilly. We've seen it with just a lot of Elliot Spitzer, Matt Lauer, just a lot of even that good old boy that you watch all the time on Fox News. There's a lot of guys that have been accused of assault. Sean Hannity, a lot of them, and they still get jobs and they stay on the air. It's a shame, but I want to give this woman a lot of, if I can say, praise. I don't know if that's the right word, but her name is Emily Applegate. And 14 other women speaking on the condition of anonymity, the other women, because they're afraid or they settled under some type of non-disclosure agreement, who accused the Washington Redskins organization of sexual harassment. And this is her own words. And for any man that has a daughter, and you vote for a man that says, grab your daughter by the P-U, blah, 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 and you vote for him anyway, she says it was the most miserable experience of her life. Applegate, who worked as a marketing coordinator for the team from 2014 to 2015, said that. And when you think about it, the report states that the allegations of harassment is not like it's one day. It occurred between 2006 and 2016 under two different categories. So what's the culture? And I know you may say, well, it's powerful white men, and maybe that's true because history seems to say that, even though anyone can be accused of that. What's the way that women can get help as opposed to being up against the wall, if that makes any sense? Your thoughts?
Okay, who owns NFL teams, Charlton?
Powerful white guys.
Okay, you answered the question right there. You know, the president's friend who allegedly committed suicide while he was in detention, a guy named Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
Ran a sex ring, powerful old white man, okay? Dealing with powerful white men, going out, accosting young white girls, Charlton, taking them around the world, using them as pawns, Charlton, to other powerful white men. You got to look at it. I mean, every sex scandal that you look at the Catholic Church, you look at Penn State, you look at Michigan State, you look at Michigan, you look at Ohio State, Charlton. You look at any one of these alleged incidents that have come about. Tell me who they pointed their finger at.
Yeah, and I do want to make sure that
tell me.
Yeah.
It's all white men, Charlton.
Yeah.
They're talking about white guys doing this. They've done it with anonymity for decades, for centuries, Charlton. And it's never a surprise when another one of these situations arrives. You can talk about it till the sky turns pink, blue, red, whatever. It's always powerful white guys behind it. When you think about Larry Nassar having all of that power over all of these young girls at Michigan State, overseeing the gymnastics programs, Charlton. Yeah. The Bella Rosie, I think his name was Bella Rosie, who dealt with the Olympic training team, Charlton, of the female gymnast. And they had to close down his thing because of the sexual assaults that were going on there.
Yeah.
It's one after another. If you put all of their pictures up, Charlton, they have one thing in common. They're powerful white guys. You don't see black guys. I mean, if it was black guys doing this, Charlton, they would have got to the bottom of it in a heartbeat. It would have been over with, okay? But it's not. It's guys that look like them, that think like them, that do the same things they do behind the closed doors. Why is the door always closed? You never know what's going on when the door is closed. Why can't they leave the damn door open and be honest about what they are?
Well, I know that's a very strong sentiment, Big C. I know it happens with people of all colors, so I want to make sure that women who are assaulted by men who are not old and white, I don't want to discredit what they've gone through also, but I do understand your point. But I also...
when we're looking at this mass situation that goes on, Charlton, when we got these multiple incidents going on over and over, they are white men protected by power because they're controlling paychecks, they're controlling employment, they're controlling whether you get a recommendation going to another job, Charlton. It's the same M.O. I mean, I'm not saying that other cultures don't do it.
Right.
But when you look at white men, older, powerful white men, they do it with ease, man. It's like them having a cup of coffee.
Well, it sure seems to be when it comes out and these women, I know it happens in corporate America. I think the only guy that's well known that had to pay a price for it was Bill Cosby. But he was convicted by pretty much a Caucasian jury for doing the same thing.
But think about that, what you just said, Bill Cosby, Charlton.
Yeah.
One black guy went to prison, over incidents like this, okay? One black guy. And you look at the number of white alleged incidents that you come up with constantly. I mean, Nassar, yes, he's gone to prison. Sandusky's gone to prison. But we haven't heard anybody from the Catholic Church going to prison, Charlton. We haven't heard anybody from these NFL organizations going to prison. So, I mean, when you look at it, you take Bill Cosby, the one black guy who's gone to prison.
Yeah.
One black guy. He didn't have the power of all these white guys that they have, and they still walk in the street.
Yeah, they're still walking the street, and even the guy in the Oval Office has so many allegations against him, and it's just women that say they want to protect their daughters. Like, do you really want to protect your daughters? And I think he got 65% of the white male vote, which makes your story even more elusive, Big C. So maybe it's a cultural thing, but it's a shame. And I just ask the women, you got to report it, even though you may feel like you're climbing a big mountain. Dan Snyder, the owner, obviously he's going to listen to his lawyers. He's hired a District of Columbia law firm in Washington to review the Washington Redskins NFL team's culture and policies and allegations of workplace misconduct. Maybe this sounds stupid. You know how they say law enforcement must always wear a camera? I'm sure every workforce has cameras set up for anti-theft mechanisms. They got a camera on almost every room, and maybe they should use that if that makes any sense and keeping people safe. Let them know you're under video surveillance. I don't want that happening to any woman that I care about or love, and I just feel, because I never feel threatened. I never feel afraid when it comes to that. And I don't know what women go through, but it's a shame when the majority of white women can go through that, and they'll vote for a guy who brags about it anyway. To me, that's just disgusting. One more thought on that, Big C?
Well, Charlton, it's not about the guy that you voted for. He did not create that type of scenario. He's just one of the guys who's in the room with the door closed, okay?
Yeah.
When you look at it, the whole gamut of these white men of power that continuously, over decades, commit sexual assault against boys and girls, Charlton, not just women. They do it against boys and girls. They don't care. Because they have the power to do it. And there's been, documented situations, for decades of these things occurring. And they do it. They do it over and over. But the thing about it,
Thomas Jefferson,
is how do they keep getting the opportunity to be in that situation? That's what, I'm curious about. And Daniel Snyder could not have been dumb about what was going on in his organization. If he's there at the day-to-day operations, he had to hear something or know something from somebody. I mean, these guys get together, they make jokes, they talk, Charlton.
Yeah.
But, they use this undertone all the time in what they do, and they get away with it. You can't sit there and cover for these guys. They are bad people. Just like when they say they're bad cops, there's a couple bad apples. That's more than a couple bad apples, Charlton, when you're looking at white people doing bad things.
Well, I know we go back to Thomas Jefferson, Sally Hemings. You think about it. There was years after the death of his wife, Thomas Jefferson was the father of 6 children of Sally Hemings. And
26.
Yeah,
26. Not 6, 26. Understand your history. Thomas Jefferson had 26 children with his slave, Sally Hemings. Not only was that his slave, Charlton, but she was the half-sister of his wife. His wife and Sally Hemings had the same father. So when he married his wife, he brought Sally Hemings along because they grew up together.
Yeah.
And he had 26 children with her.
Well, I'm sure he had more than that with the other slaves that he owned. And, it didn't stop him from being president. And people say, oh, that's a different time. That behavior seems to be the same. It's just a shame. I don't know what to tell women. I really don't, because I just don't want it to happen to anyone I love. But saying that, it's not enough when people will stand and support men and vote for men who've been doing that anyway with impunity. I want to touch on...
They vote for them because they do the same thing. It's a cultural lifestyle. It's an ethnic lifestyle of the people who accept that, have been involved in that in some capacity in their life. I mean, you're not going to condone it unless you've dealt with it.
Donald Trump's niece, I forgot her name, but she wrote a book. We talked about it some yesterday. And she says that he's one of the most dangerous men in America. And then, just in what you're saying, Kelly McEnany, his White House press secretary that's paid to speak for him, she says, we categorically deny everything the woman who's known him for all of his life is saying about him. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that she knows about him, as well as a lot of other guys that have gotten that position of power and do what they want to do with impunity because they have the money. And they know the jury's going to be all white and the judge is going to be white that's going to owe him favors. Therefore, it never ends. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you got to understand, his sister was a federal judge. So you think he didn't have ties in the law, Charlton, the whole time he was doing things in New York and other places? When your sister is a federal judge, Charlton, she can pull strings. She can move things. And that's what has happened throughout Donald Trump's life.
Yeah.
When you got a sister that's a federal judge, this has allowed you to be a criminal, a legal criminal, because you had someone fixing situations that, regardless of whatever you got into, you had somebody doing unilateral moves to get you out of them.
Yeah, well, any woman, again, I'm just a man trying to say to other men, there's no excuses for it, for domestic violence, sexual assault. But the women have to also say the same thing by their actions, not just their words. We're going to take what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. And Big C, when we come back, I'm going to ask you some questions about ex-wives, the clergy, and an NFL owner. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on so many applications all over the world. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports Podcast. A judge, just like Sally Hemings and Thomas Jefferson, doing his thing with impunity. A judge denies a media request to unseal files. We just finished talking about the Washington Redskins. To unseal files on the New Orleans Saints former owner, denied a request by news organizations, the Associated Press, to unseal court records, Big C, involving the mental competency of billionaire Tom Benson when he rewrote his will and gave his third wife of the New Orleans Saints and the Pelicans sports franchise, I guess, the majority of ownership. So there's a lot of fighting going on. But there's also something else that's even a little bit more ominous, Big C. Legitimate questions are being raised about the connection between the team and the local Roman Catholic Church. Attorneys for the news organizations wrote in a court filing. A lot of things have been going on, and who knows what goes on behind closed doors. Maybe that's why they have confession. But can you believe how much the churches are tied up with wives and football teams? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it goes back to the statement I made earlier in the broadcast. Powerful white men.
Yeah. It happens to everybody. It happens in every culture. But that's a very sad...
But think about it. You can say it happens to everybody in every culture.
Yeah.
But you're going to tell me you have as many powerful old black men in America as you do powerful old white men in America that have covered up things that we see every day that are obvious. Just like with the case you're talking about with Thomas Benson. There's no old black men that own the New Orleans Pelicans or the New Orleans Saints that was involved with the Catholic Church or, this type of situation.
Yeah. Well, I do know people personally that were assaulted by people who looked just like him, and they were not old white men. But I know it's a culture out there, Big C. It's a culture of men who think they can do it no matter what their color is. And that's why I just don't know the answer how to stop it, because it seems like, this might seem really stupid, but it seems like a lot of the women go right back to that same relationship, and that's why POTUS got 52% of the white women vote.
But do you think that judge was the same complexion that Thomas Benson was prior to his death, Charlton? Do you think that he was, or that he was somebody who didn't look like him? Somebody who dealt in the same social realm, Charlton,
yeah,
that he dealt with, that maybe might have been on some of those papers that he wanted to keep sealed, because that's public access after the fact, and he's chosen to seal that and not let it be known to the media.
Yeah.
That means he has some, capitulation in that, Charlton, that he's dealt with that situation.
Yeah.
That he was cordial with that in environment. So, I mean, we can try to spin it and say that any culture and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the obvious. We're not talking about a lateral culture. We're talking about putting your finger on something and what it looks like.
Yeah. Sometimes it'll walk like a duck and talk like a duck. I don't know if ducks talk, but it's a duck from what I understand. And speaking of walking and talking like a duck, and it's one thing to talk about men that are rapacious against women and violate women, and women go back to that same man anyway and stay with him for whatever reason. And here's another story that it kind of turned my stomach in a bit, but I'm not really surprised. WNBA basketball, I would say it's mostly an African-American league. The commissioner, her name is Kathy Engelbert, and she has tacitly consented with Kelly Loeffler in her Anti-Black Matters as a terrorist group is what she calls it. It's an insult, Big C, to all black Americans that are Dr. Martin Luther King or seeking economic, criminal justice reform, equality, and protecting our children. And I would say to those players, boycott that team. The team is the Atlanta Dream. It was named the Dream after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I Have a Dream. And for a white lady to tell all those black women that you don't matter, and I'm not going to stand behind your cause. And then you have the WNBA commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, saying that, well, we won't push her into selling her interests in the team, but the league is aware of other potential owners of the franchise. If you have no spine, why are you commissioner, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you're looking at going after a United States senator. And so that's where Engelbert's hands are tied, because there will be repercussions against her long-standing, Charlton. So that's what she's looking at. She's looking out for herself. She's not concerned about the Negro women in the league, Charlton. She's looking at what the repercussions could come back on her if she challenges a United States senator.
Okay, but how about we just say, well, women stand up for women? Is it always about the money? Let me ask you another question then. And we don't know because we're men, and maybe we're stupid talking about what women think. I don't know. But maybe we should ask Laura Ingraham, okay? But what about the African-American women? Why work for somebody that says you don't matter and you're part of a terrorist group? That's a horrible accusation to make about somebody, Big C. There are women who are doing everything they can, not only to have a career, a professional career, but to raise families, to be successful in business, to push for equality where they don't have to pull their pants down to have a job. And now she's calling them as being part of a terrorist group if they stand for Black Lives Matter. Why would you play for that knucklehead, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, it's not about playing for the individual, Charlton. It's about playing in the league. It's about having a job. There are other things and stances that these young ladies can make to show their stance far as for Black Lives Matter and other causes that they live up to, Charlton. So, I mean, to deal with the co-owner of the organization, you just have to put that in the back of your mind because she cannot be the one that affects your thought process and how you move forward from this point. Yes, she's part of who writes the checks, Charlton, but you don't have to acknowledge her.
Yeah. Well, I feel it's like we tell women. I mean, who am I to tell any woman what to do? People can make up their own mind, but I still want to stand up for people that I love. Don't go back into that abusive relationship. At the same time, well, if you need a job, then go back. That's like telling women who are sexually assaulted to keep going.
Look at the NFL owners, Charlton.
Yeah. What
was their stance against Black Lives Matter? What did they do threatening players constantly? You take a knee, you're not going to be on the field.
Yeah.
That went away real quick 4 years ago. So what Kelly Loeffler is doing right now is no different what the NFL owners did 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why the players are doing what they're doing. You're talking about the largest sports organization, most popular one in the world, the NFL.
Yeah.
She took the stance of the NFL owners. So why should she be treated any differently than an NFL owner?
Yeah. Well, that's a very good point, and I didn't look at it that way, but perhaps I'll take a second thought on it. It's easy to tell somebody to quit or not work for a bigot, but again, if we're telling women, like the Washington Redskins story, a lot of those women, they kept putting up with the sexual assault. If there was even a story that one of the former coaches that recently got fired was having an affair with the staffer, and the same woman, the same staffer, was also messing around with one of the players. I mean, you can Google that if you want to, but it's like telling women, even though you're being sexually assaulted, at least you're getting a paycheck, so just go back and put up with it. And there has to be a stronger message than that, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, like I said, these are the guys that are in power,
yeah.
The owners, management, that have been committing these atrocities against women for decades.
Yeah.
And they all look alike. They've done it over and over. The media that covers them looks like them, Charlton, so they're going in with kid gloves.
Yeah.
The thing about the media, you can only make the allegation if you don't have foundation.
Yeah.
So they're making an allegation. But they're also being empathetic towards the club because those clubs are the reason why they have jobs because they're reporting on them. So they don't want to walk in there, with a fire hydrant, Charlton, and saying, okay, we're going to drown this whole situation and expose it. We're going to wash away all the dirt. And here it is. So when you look at the people, and people have stayed in jobs for various reasons.
Yeah.
But it comes down to the same thing. I don't care how you want to slice this, Charlton. That loaf of white bread looks like a loaf of white bread. These are the same ones that are committing these atrocities.
Yeah, I guess birds of a feather flock together. When POTUS says, grab them by the PU, blah, 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 and people vote for it, maybe they know more than I know. I want to touch on the world of NFL football. I'm very passionate about that matter, only because I've known women who've had to put up with that garbage. And I always say, call 911.
Charlton, your buddy is in the White House. And I know we've talked about it a lot since we've had a program. The Central Park Five, okay?
Yeah.
The Central Park Five. 5 black teenagers accused of sexual assault. What happened to them? They were accused of sexual assault.
Yeah.
And they did not even commit it, Charlton. They weren't even there. Look at how they were treated. When you want to talk about black and white, powerful white men get away with whatever they want, poor black men don't.
Yeah, that's very well said, Big C. I remember the Central Park Five very, very poignantly. Also, the housing discrimination lawsuit in New York City against the Trump family, too, against not renting to black Americans. I understand that, too. It's all fair and love and war, Big C. NFL football. I know we just talked about Spain and crowning a champion for the first time since 2017. NFL football news, and it may be even higher by the time we get off the air tonight, Big C. 72 players have tested positive for COVID-19. That's since July the 10th. Today is only July the 16th. We still got a day to go, Big C, to round it up. But 72 players have tested positive for COVID-19 in the NFL, and they can't wait to see you guys get out there and play. You ever go to a swimming pool and it says closed because of fecal contamination? They'll just say closed for cleaning. They know oftentimes, if you know the lifeguards, they close them because of fecal contamination, Big C. You ever see someone jump in the pool and swim anyway? 72 guys going swimming in a pool that's closed due to fecal contamination, and the owner saying, it's okay, we can play, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the rookies are due to report in less than 48 hours to training camp.
Yeah.
The veterans are due in 12 days. So as you look at this pandemic that is rising with 72 players in the last 6 days testing positive, that lets you know that there's a heat wave getting ready to go over training camps all across the U.S., John.
Yeah.
And when we think about that, and baseball is starting in 7 days also.
Yeah.
And you look at the states that are hot, that have a lot of NFL teams. You think about Florida, they have 2. You look at California, they have 3.
Yeah.
You look at Texas, they have 2. Arizona has 1. Georgia has 1. So when you think about these states and these people reporting the training camp, Charlton, it's going to get horrific.
Yeah, it's been happening without them even reporting. And that's the shame, because just like the swimming pool closed due to fecal contamination, and you see guys jumping in the pool anyway. So players are going to do what they want to do because they're grown people. But the thing that bugs me a little bit, and it's not me, it's estimating an additional 90-man training camp roster will give you a number of about 2,880 total NFL players at the moment, which means 72%. It only represents 2.5% of the league's player population. They have not played it down yet. They have not had a scrimmage yet. They have not traded pathogens yet, and you still get 72. If a plane went down with 72 people on it, or 72 people got sick on a plane that didn't even crash, say they got sick on a plane that did not even crash, how long would it take the FAA to sit that plane aside and figure out what's causing 72 passengers on one plane to get sick? NFL says, hey, it's okay. Just get on the plane anyway, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it goes back just like we started the program. When we talked about the appearance of those guys who were committing sexual assault and getting away with it.
Yeah.
What they look like. What do the owners of the NFL look like? They have power also, where nobody's going to question them. When they say they want something to happen, it's going to happen. And that's where you are right now.
Wow.
They're going to send players out there. And the player is at risk, not the owner, Charlton. He's not at risk.
Yeah.
He's going to be far away from these players. But it's about the economics of the business. To make their money, they have to initiate the games, Charlton.
Yeah.
Yes, they pay players. We can talk about all these huge contracts that players have gotten during the offseason.
Yep.
You let me know which one of those owners squinted when he had to sign his name to one of those checks, with those 7 and 8 digits on it, Charlton. They don't give a damn about the money that they give a player, because what they get is 10 times more than what the salary cap is.
Yeah. Now, I know that we just got Myles Garrett, got the biggest contract for the defensive football player, $100 million guaranteed of the $125 million. But I would say the NFL, when you look at Texans, J.J. Watt, he's a good player, and he wants to play. He says he wants to play, but many people remain, they're questionable. Why not just listen to your doctor? He says, we want to play. And he posted a list of questions that the NFL players need answered before returning to training camp, Big C, before it opens. And it's supposed to open for the regular season Thursday, I think September the 10th, when they play Kansas City. As you just mentioned, players are going to return at different times. But the NFL responded to the NFL's PA's counterproposal on COVID-19 related reopening protocols, saying that there's a lot of things that are unresolved. Why does J.J. Watt need another NFL owner or NFL PA to tell him what the doctors told him, which is don't get on a plane that's already had 72 contaminations, and now they say all aboard, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, what the players are trying to find out, especially someone like J.J. Watt, is what are all the risk factors? What are you going to do to help us? If we get sick from COVID-19, are we still going to get paid? there's a lot of uncertainty because the guys that, the powerful white guys, as we talked about the entire show,
yeah,
they're not willing to tell you that we're going to take care of you. We want you to go out there and play the game so that our television contracts will kick in.
Yeah.
Our sponsorship contracts will kick in. We have enough players around that if you get sick, we can put you on the non-football injury list and not pay you and pay someone else less than what we would have been paying you.
Yeah.
And that's something that the players don't want to deal with. They want to know that their salaries are 100% guaranteed if they get COVID.
Okay, if Big C, 72 players have already gotten it without even brushing up against each other, without even being in the same locker room, without even having wind sprints, without that blocking sled example that they do where they have players run through the blocking sled. They've already had 72, and I'm pretty decent at math. After 72 comes 73, unless you're in the White House. After 72 comes 71. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's inevitable that players are going to get COVID-19 and the numbers are going to expand, Charlton.
Yeah.
It's that the owners don't want to face that fact. They don't want to look at that. That's not their problem.
Yeah.
Their problem is getting the games played. They're also struggling with not having fans in the seats. They're trying to figure out how do they get people into the stadium also to increase their revenue, Charlton. The players are just like Laura Ingalls said about the NBA players. Just shut up and dribble.
She was
this
right.
is what the owners are saying
Yeah.
to the NFL players. Just
Shut up and play.
Be happy
Yeah.
that you're under contract.
Yeah. Shut up and play. Be happy because you're under contract. Hey, sometimes you shut up and play, but grown men will do what they want to. J.J. Watt, you don't need to ask another person who's not a doctor what they're going to do about your health. Talk to your doctor, Big C. I want to touch on NBA basketball. The NBA, and I hope everything is okay. Zion Williams, New Orleans Pelicans player, he leaves the NBA bubble. I guess it's some type of family matter, which a lot of players might come up with that type of reasoning. And I hope he's okay, and I hope his family's okay. But that, to me, it shows that he's going to leave it, and he's going to go deal with family matters. And that means he has to come back in and quarantine for another 2 weeks. But once he's outside, do you really see the reason for going back? Big C, your thoughts?
Do you think that he really wanted to be there from the start, Charlton? I mean, all of these things about these players down in Orlando, breaking curfew,
Yeah.
leaving outside the bubble, doing things to break protocol. What you're saying is that the players are the dumbest people in the world if they didn't understand protocol when they got to Orlando.
Yeah.
Players
Yeah.
are continuously finding ways to break protocols so they don't play.
Yeah.
They don't want to play, Charlton. Be realistic about it. They're not all that advantageous about wanting to go out there and potentially get COVID
Yeah.
because they know it's going to happen. And only one team is going to get the ring,
Yeah.
period. When you got 6 teams that you added to this because you wanted to get Zion on television, Zion has said, hey, I'm not going to be around for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about television now?
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at players and you're saying that players are just so selfish and greedy that they all think that they can win an NBA title.
Yeah.
When you go into the season, you only have 4 teams that realistically have a chance at winning a title. In the restart of this thing, you still only have 4 teams that realistically have a chance of winning a title.
Yeah, and it's always ironic how the owners and everybody pushing to start, just like the guy on the airplane, 72 people got sick on an airplane. Some had to go to the hospital, the ICU, and they say, okay, all aboard, and some people get on the plane anyway. In the MEAC, Big C, the MEAC, they postponed the football season. The Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, they've suspended fall sports, becoming the 3rd Division I league to postpone its football season, and follows is for the Ivy League and the Patriot League. The MEAC also announced it would not have competition in the fall and consider trying to make up the schedule for those sports in the 2021 spring semester. The MEAC is comprised of 11 historically black colleges, though its membership is in flux right now. Florida A&M and Bethune-Cookman announced they're going to be leaving and joining the Southwest Atlantic Conference. But I am very proud. Like I've told you before, and you said it too, everybody has their own thoughts. A lot of African Americans, they know that, well, I can't say, I feel like I'm stupid for saying this, but as a group, these universities have decided we're going to put the health of our young men and women first. They're going to put the health first, Big C. And sports can wait. They're going to put it on pause to 2021. What can the professional black athletes learn from the HBCs, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, isn't it ironic, once again, that blacks have to take the lead role in trying to get something accomplished in America that's going to improve the lives of people? Just like in the Black Lives Matter marching, Charlton.
Yeah.
Just like in these historical black colleges saying we're not going to put our young men at risk. We had that situation occurred a couple of weeks ago where historical black colleges said they were not going to be playing sports. And now the entire BAC conference, historical black colleges, saying that we're not going to put our athletes at risk going out there to entertain other people, because the long-term objective of a student athlete is to develop your mind and to move forward through life and have a long and lustrous career beyond the sports that you play in college. That's the stance that the historical black colleges are taking that you're not getting from the Power 5 conferences. Like, we don't give a damn. We'll get some athletes again next year. That's what they're thinking about. Go ahead on out there and risk your health.
Airplane had 72 passengers get critically ill. So ill they had to be isolated for 2 weeks. And the flight attendant says, okay, next on board. And the NBA said, okay, I'll get on board next. And a lot of NFL players too. The NCAA, Big C, they issued extended guidelines to help navigate the return of fall sports during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's called the Sports Science Institute, Big C. And they released extended guidelines to help schools continue to navigate the return to fall sports in the midst of COVID-19, including testing within 72 hours of competition. And at the HBCs, I'm proud of them. They're the least funded. They're the least acknowledged, Big C, when it comes to academic and athletics. But I appreciate the universities and the people at the head of what's going on to be more prescient than NCAA President Mark Emmert, because he conceded the virus is trending in the wrong direction. But we got to get those people on the airplane. That only 72 pro players were injured so far. But I appreciate the HBCs have a more leadership than Mark Emmert as a president of the NCAA. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, all of the Power 5 conferences think like Mark Emmert. They want to play. They don't care. When you think about the HBC schools, Charlton, they're really not a part of the NCAA.
No.
They exist, but they really don't operate under the same mandate. But once again, Mark Emmert is one of those guys I talk about at the beginning of the program. He's an old, powerful white man. That's what he is. And so he's looking out for himself and his constituents.
He's looking out for them. Before we come to the close, I do want to acknowledge something that happened that you broke yesterday at the end of our show. There's a book called Black Fortunes, and it's by Shamari Wills. It's about the story of the first 6 African Americans who escaped slavery and became multi-millionaires in the United States of America. But I also want to say something that we've talked about. The universe has been listening. Reparations bill in North Carolina passes by a mostly white vote. I believe it will sweep all over the United States of America. If we can put more thought into reparations for black Americans, as we do saying, go jump in that contaminated swimming pool where 72 NFL players have already gotten sick or tested positive. NBA players have gotten sick and tested positive. While they're getting sick and testing positive, in a historic move, the city of Asheville, North Carolina, they voted unanimously to approve a reparations resolution for black residents Tuesday, which was 83% white and 12% black, formally apologized for the role it played in slavery in implementing racism. Big C, I appreciate, and I've been saying it all along, it's not about the color, it's about the spirit of people. And you would never expect a group of white Americans to vote 83% that we're going to prove something for black Americans. Reparations, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it also, you have to look at what is the reparations going to mean. I mean, to say that you were going to do reparations, but without having the foundation of what the total, compensation is going to be, I'm still a little leery about it.
Well, it's okay to be leery, but when you clear the fog from being leery, the city plans to make investments in areas where black residents face disparities. The resolution calls for forming a policy and programs that will establish the creation of generational wealth and address reparations due to the black communities, as well as asking for the state legislature and the federal government to do the same. It's almost like being at a stoplight. It either says green for go or red for stop. Yellow's like for pause. But when somebody says green to go, that means people are going to put their heads together and work to form a more perfect union. It's going to sweep on the federal level. But I've been saying a long time ago, Big C, it's not about the skin color of a person. It's about the heart of that person. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on so many apps, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Big C, I know you swing a golf ball every now and then, and I know every now and then you swing a golf ball and you actually don't hit the neighbor's window when you swing the golf club sometimes. But in the Memorial Tournament and the Nationwide, we have Tony Finau. He was up there in the first. I didn't see the whole scoreboard, but I think Tiger Woods finished, and I think he was at 26, tied for 26th place when I last looked at it before I got on the program. If he makes the cut, maybe people will pay attention. But he got to get rid of that green or bluish green shirt that he was wearing. He needs to have red, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Tony Finau is on top of the leaderboard at -6. Tiger Woods is 1 under at -1. So he's still in contention, Charlton. He had 3 bogeys today that really hurt his round. He has to be more consistent and stay in the fairway.
Yeah, it looks like he's on, -1. Paul Casey's up there -1 as well. Vijay Singh -1. And there's a lot of guys. I like to pay attention as it gets closer to what's happening on the weekends. I know a lot of guys love golf. It's good to see well-known names that are out there swinging the club, Big C, and maybe having a good, if they can make the cut for the weekend. That's the main thing. I know the weather's a little bit windy. But also, before we close out, NASCAR, Bristol, Tennessee, it opens the gates, Big C. They had 30,000 fans that they allowed to show up. And so that's a pretty good number. I guess they're doing social distancing. And they have a capacity of 140,000 at the NASCAR event. Now, the main thing is Texas Motor Speedway, Big C. That's coming up this weekend, I believe. And they are allowing, even though Texas is spiking, they're allowing to admit about 67,000 spectators on Sunday. If the weather's going to hold up, it might be too hot for a lot of people to go out. But what do you say about Texas? You're in a state where it's spiking. They're going to allow 67,000 spectators. If they go, that's their own choice. But that, to me, doesn't make sense to do what you need to do to lower the spread. But your thoughts, they got some fans that showed up, but it's like lighting a fire pit when you have gasoline. It might spark even more, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, what they're telling people, Charlton, come on in and get your free positive COVID test. That's what they're advocating. Come on into the raceway and get sick.
Yeah, the NFL airplane, 72 passengers tested positive COVID-19. The NFL says it's only 72. How many more people would get on that airplane? Unfortunately, a lot of NFL players would get on that airplane. I know it's all fair and love and war. People are going to do what they want. I'm really happy that we have this talk of reparations because white people get reparations all the time. It's called yes on your loan application. It's called yes when you're running for office and you have that popularity vote. It's called yes when you can run for office and you can be as egregious as you want to be as a president. And people say that you're one of the lionest presidents in the history that we've ever had in this country. And people are still voting for him anyway. It doesn't make any sense. When you say that you can go out to a rally, don't wear a mask, and people are getting sick, and you still refuse to wear a mask. I think Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, she even said that POTUS landed at Atlanta Hartsfield Airport, which is the busiest in the United States, and he, unlike a lot of the people that greeted him, he refused to wear a mask, which is a violation for the city of Atlanta. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, not only that, Governor Brian Kemp in Georgia today filed suit against the city of Atlanta for their mandate that they wear the mask to try to get that overturned. He does not want the people in the state of Georgia to wear a mask and be safe. And we've already talked about the Atlanta Dream. You got to realize the city of Atlanta has 5 professional teams. They have the Hawks, they have the Braves, they have the Falcons, they have the Dream, and they have Atlanta United, a soccer team.
Yeah.
So you got 5 professional teams. The mayor of the city of Atlanta mandated masks being worn by all citizens in public, and the governor filed suit today to overturn that mandate. And what is the governor? An old white man, Charlton.
Wow. Well, hopefully the universe will allow people who deserve to get stricken, let them get stricken, and not the people who are trying to cover. And I think Keisha Lance Bottoms is actually recovering from COVID-19, so she knows what she's talking about. Big C is only in America. Back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, how long before the bubble burst down in Orlando? As of today, 31% of Florida school children have tested positive for COVID-19. So you're talking about children, school age, under 18 years of age.
Wow.
31% have tested positive for COVID-19. So as we're dying to get sports back and playing again, Charlton, think about the number of people that were going to be dying. And of that 31%, they tested 54,000 students, Charlton, and
wow.
31% of them came up positive. So you think about how callous that these old white men that are running the state and what they care about most. But once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, nurses, doctors, first responders. You do such a great job every day, and you sacrifice so much for the people of this country.
And I really appreciate, as we share knowledge, I still ask everyone, keep hope alive. You can keep hope alive every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, that's never, ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.